Breaking news, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We are right now in a G2 geomagnetic storm as a result of a coronal hole high-speed stream that is sweeping by the Earth right now at this moment in time. I talked about that in yesterday's video, how that was going to impact us. Well, it is now impacting us, giving us a G2 storm. The scale rating goes from 1 to 5. So this is a pretty powerful geomagnetic storm, not the strongest that we've ever seen, but it is riding on the coattails of a sequence of geomagnetic storms that we've been having since mid-March, meaning there's been increased energy volatility across the planet since that moment in time, and now we're receiving a big pulse of additional geomagnetic activity. And just in and of itself, that influences the geophysical energy characteristics of the Earth. It causes there to be this crunch on the radiation belts, and that energy stored in the radiation belts, these extremely highly energized particles like protons and electrons, they then stream down into the Earth and they charge the ionosphere, the uppermost part of the atmosphere, and that energy eventually works its way down closer to the surface through the stratosphere and into the troposphere. It even works down into the crust of the Earth, the lithosphere, and works with things like the stress mechanics of the plates and is connected to things like earthquakes. So we can have also changes in the troposphere. And this is where our weather is. The troposphere is the lowermost layer of the atmosphere, and it's like the top like 10 miles or something like that. And this is where we all are hanging out basically, and that's where most of the weather is. Most of the clouds, all those dynamics typically take place in the troposphere. Well, that energy can come down and then start to alter the parameters of weather there. It can increase wind velocity, and it can cause there to be changes in pressure and temperature, and the electric field changes because the ionosphere, this uppermost part of the atmosphere that's weakly ionized, is part plasma, it increases in its charge, building this stronger electric field down to the ground surface, which also has an electric charge, and they have this gradient between them. And so right now, at this moment in time, we have some pretty big systems in the United States. We have this cyclone here hovering off the coast of Washington, the entire Pacific Northwest, already shooting some clouds up into and water vapor up into Alaska along British Columbia there. But that is set to impact late tonight, Wednesday, Pacific time. So this is expected to come in like 5 to 10 p.m. or so. So just hours from now is what they expect. We also see some really heavy rainfall occurring and thunderstorms here in Texas. We also got hail, and just in general, there is an alert for this part of the United States going all the way to the beginning of March, like April, all the way to the beginning of April, like April 4th, for there to be a much higher likelihood of supercells developing. These supercells are really big cloud systems. And what happens is if they get tall enough and you have differential wind directions across the air column, it can cause them to start to rotate, and all of a sudden you get this increase in vorticity, and that can create things like really powerful cyclones or like tornadoes, a little bit on a smaller scale like a tornado. There has been a tornado alert issued for Washington, which is very, very unusual for this time of year. They're just saying there's a possibility of like 1 or 2 tornadoes touching down. But what these weather forecasters almost universally don't take into account is space weather. And their models are based off of different inputs. They don't have an input for a G2 geomagnetic storm in their models. And so if they did, if this was a little bit more multidisciplinary, then perhaps their forecast would say that there was a greater likelihood of more tornadoes. That's just a possibility. But we know that there's this connection between space weather, geomagnetic activity, and increased volatility of weather systems and intensification of them. And so you have to take the weather forecast that you are being given by all these organizations and different individuals and groups, which are doing amazing work. God bless all of them. But in general, they do not take space weather into account. And so you just have to do the calculus yourself. It's actually algebra. It's actually just addition. It's very, very simple. It's just, okay, what is the weather system that they are forecasting? I'm just going to click it up a notch because we know that we have a G2 storm or a G3 storm or a G1 storm or whatever. So that is what's happening right now. Put your oxygen mask on. No, it's nothing to worry about, but if you are in these areas, make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have the things that you need to be safe and ready because, you know, real life does happen. We're not in a fantasy virtual reality land. We live in a world that is still controlled by the Earth. We have an influence over the Earth anthropogenically through a variety of means. I mean, how we mine minerals and move mass around and our input into the atmosphere in terms of like greenhouse gas emissions, things of this nature. This undoubtedly affects the Earth. You know, we've affected the oceans, the temperatures, all this stuff. But we can't deny the fact that the Earth is still by far the dominant factor at play. The Earth itself, its energy and geophysical systems, and also the sun has a massive outsized influence over our climate and also over our weather. I mean, if we turn the sun off, simple experiment, turn the sun off, well, all this shuts down, right? So the sun ultimately is the main engine and then everything else is a modifier. And so we have this coming in, like, let's just remember that Earth is still in control here. And that's I think we've lost sight of that a little bit as humans to some degree. So there's another map that we can look at right here. This is null.earth, and this is a really great website. And we'll see that it's not just America. We also do have this little thing here forming off the northwest coast of Australia, just south of Indonesia. And we also have actually two of them, looks like. So we'll see where these go, but they are definitely not as significant as the one off the coast of Washington, because if I go over there, that guy is a lot bigger. And again, that is going this direction. It's moving this way at this moment in time. These things can be very dynamic. You know, perhaps it totally shifts direction, but typically because of the dynamic with the Pacific Ocean, these things roll in like this. You get these atmospheric rivers or sometimes these low pressure systems that just roll through like that. And we might have actually pressure here on this one. No, but I have a different graphic I can show you for low pressure. So let me show you that right now. Here we have the tweet that was put out by the National Weather Service saying, an unusual severe risk is expected for the Pacific Northwest today. Supercell thunderstorms are possible west of the Cascades and may produce large hail, perhaps a tornado or two, and strong wind gusts. And again, keep in mind, they're not taking space weather into account as it relates to this. This is based off all the radar data that they're getting and a variety of other things, right? So their models, whatever. But as far as I know, most people in the meteorological community dismiss the connection between the sun and weather, which is bonkers to me. So it's fairly safe to assume that they're not taking space weather into account in their models, which is unfortunate. Here we see a low pressure system, and this is another way to look at this. We have precipitation and also our pressure. So we see that we have this body precipitation there, just basically a lot of water vapor. And the stats is that this is going to increase in moisture just in general and also increase in temperature by about 15 degrees as it gets towards land because the Pacific's very cold. So it's going to warm up this entire area. And again, if you get this really big supercell, right, and it forms some height because of the different wind temperatures, wind velocities and directions, you can start to get this shearing and this rotation to develop even more at even smaller scales too. We already have that clearly at play, but that could also form at smaller scales, and that leads to things like tornadoes. Quarter-sized hail could be something that results, right? They're talking about large hail, like quarter-sized hail. You don't want to get hit by that. I was pelted by hail in Germany, and it was not quarter-sized, and I was on my bike, and I was like, this is hurting me. Like, I need to get out of this. If it gets bigger, I'm going to get hurt. And then also 60-mile-per-hour gusts are expected from this. So it's even just from that aspect, you know, very strong winds, but just is just, you know, important to keep in mind. It's just this convergence of things happening right now. Now down here in Texas, they have heavy rain and thunderstorms, a lot of lightning activity, but you'll notice that there isn't any vorticity here. It's not a low pressure system. So it's unlikely for this to all of a sudden become some monster right now. But there's an alert in general for this part of the United States in terms of severe weather going all the way till April 4th as of this moment in time. Let us look at our real-time solar wind data, because that is what's driving the geomagnetic storm that we're in. And this is happening right now. Like, this isn't happened a day ago or happened 6 hours ago. We have this storm happening right now. So here's our real-time solar wind, and this is set for the past 3 days. Let me just get the center there for you all. Here we go. And so our solar wind's actually been elevated for a while. We see that here. Normal strength is 5. Here we see it's 9, and the lowest is in general right around this zone where it went down to 6. But just 3 days ago, you see that it was up 3 times more than normal, 15. And then we started to build back up again as well. We had this long period here, which started to increase geomagnetic volatility, because that lasted like, what, 8 hours? We're slowly building up in the total field strength, and the southward component went negative, which is an important component to a geomagnetic storm. To keep it simple, you need that to go negative for you to have a geomagnetic storm typically. And it allows it to connect to Earth's magnetic field very nicely. Then it went northward. Things did cool off. We see that we had that KP value there, 4.67. This is a measure of geomagnetic volatility. It goes from 0 to 9. And so that is a G1 storm right there, a 5 minus. And so 4 plus rather. So 4.67. And then we see it kind of cooled off a little bit, but now we are here. We've had 2 5 plus KP values, which gives us a G2 storm. It's like G2 light, you could say. Elaine, thank you for the super thanks. And now we see we also had, I mean, for example, right here, look at this. 24 nanotesla, 23, 24 nanotesla, negative 18 for that southward component. That's what really got this party started. And that is then right after that, right? That was the most dense region of plasma. Then all of a sudden, boom, the velocity went up. Now we're being hit by a high velocity stream, a high speed stream that they call it, and that's keeping geomagnetic activity elevated, even though some of these magnetic field conditions aren't as conducive for that. I saw a super thanks from Ghost X, thank you so much. And so yeah, we have this happening right now. One moment. And this is creating geomagnetic volatility across the entire planet. We can see that a little bit better by looking at our geospace delta B map right here. And if I scroll, let me scroll back a little bit. Let's go right to the beginning. Here it was. We've already been having geomagnetic activity like this for hours now. Keep that in mind. But we see this most recent increase in magnetic activity across the globe, really in the polar regions, but also here across the mid-latitudes and equatorial regions as well. Then we had a little bit of a cool off, right? But then it's going to pulse back up again. So we're just on and off with these waves of increasing geomagnetic activity. This is measuring swings in Earth's magnetic field strength up to 400 plus nanotesla. I guarantee you right here, some of these areas are more than 400 nanotesla, right? Because you can see how they're forming really wide swaths. So you know that there's an intensity peak. That's because most of these particles are flowing down the field lines into the high latitude regions, the North Pole to South Pole, and that causes aurora. So we have real-time aurora that we can look at, but yeah, we can look at the real-time one. Let us put that in. There have been aurora across the polar regions, and the best light show is for Alaska. but now it is daytime, so you're not going to see this during the day. Here we have our aurora forecast, and this is for 24 hours now. So we see that we've had these waves of aurora, because like here it's really diminishing down because the solar wind strength and some of the characteristics altered to really reduce the aurora. But you'll notice a big increase right here. Look at that. So parts of Siberia really got that nicely, a little bit in Alaska, and now we're just kind of in this alternating kind of on and off period with aurora. And that also gives you a clue that there's a connection between solar wind and the lower atmosphere, because these particles are coming in and they're lighting up not just in the ionosphere but also lower down, right? They basically are lighting up in the ionosphere and also in the stratosphere. So that's another clue that, you know, these high energy particles coming in are actually depositing energy into these areas. And there's a lot of latent energy in the atmosphere to begin with. You can also look at the southern hemisphere here. A lot of latent energy in the atmosphere. But what is important, you know, is the overall energy, but also the change, right? If you have all of a sudden an impulse of energy into a system, that can cause it to just have a sudden change. So something is stable, though there's a lot to it, let's say, right? Then okay, that's what it is. Even if you have like a small push into that, depending on how dynamic the system is, it could really respond to that. And the atmosphere is very dynamic. We know that, right? Because it's already pretty energized. All the gas molecules flying around from each other, they're not bound together like they are with liquids or solids. And even the uppermost part of the atmosphere is actually partly plasma, which is supercharged. So yeah, these dynamics, like just aurora in and of itself, shows you that there's a connection between space weather and the atmosphere. Now we can look more closely. Thank you, Wrong Way, for the super thanks. That's awesome, bro. Thank you, Stefan. I call you my early warning system. Yeah, well, I do my best to stay on top of this for you and cover it as it's happening live. Here we have our different indices for geomagnetic activity. And this is our 30-minute measure, which is our highest resolution look right there. We see that we actually hit a value of 7. So that would be a G3 storm for 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes, we had a value of 7, then it cooled off, and then we had a 6.667 as well. That's also a G3 storm as well, though on the light side. So that's just a 30-minute look. Rich, thank you for the super thanks, bro. And then we have our HP60 index, a 1-hour measure, and we see that the high reach for the 1 hour was 6.667, and then just recently this 6.33, and then we have our KP index again, just sliding just under 6 now, but for 6 hours. So yeah, a lot of geomagnetic volatility, and it's all because of this gigantic coronal hole. Check this out. This thing is insane. This is the biggest coronal hole that we've had on the sun in about a decade or so. Based on my look through the record, I couldn't find a coronal hole bigger than this since January 2017. So this is a big coronal hole. And it's happening during solar maximum, which is not, it's not like it's impossible to have coronal holes during solar maximum. You get those. Typically they're in the equatorial regions. Typically they're not as big. This one's big. It's giving us a G2 storm right now. So this is the cause that it's emitting this high-speed stream. We can look at the graphics so you can better understand that. I covered this in the video I put out yesterday. I'm sure a lot of you watched that. We'll just do a quick recap. Here you have the coronal hole emits this high-speed stream. These particles are flowing out as part of the regular solar wind. The solar wind travels out in like an Archimedes spiral. And so it actually has to travel 1.2 astronomical units to reach the Earth at 1 astronomical unit because of the spiral dynamic. But because the stream is a higher velocity than the ambient solar wind, it causes this pile up of plasma at the front of it. This is the high density plasma co-rotating interaction region. And that will spike the plasma density up progressively as that high-speed stream keeps feeding into it. And it'll also keep that kind of contained. And so what you get is this 1-2 punch where the high density plasma sweeps over. That can give Earth a real jolt. That's what happened with this one. And then you get this high speed stream to follow up right behind it and really kind of push the magnetosphere in a little bit more because you have just the sheer velocity of the solar wind increase from, let's say, 350 to 600 kilometers per second. So that's what's happening right now. That's what's giving us this G2 geomagnetic storm. And what's so interesting about this is that specifically it is co-rotating interaction regions that have a connection to earthquakes and also to cyclones and tornadoes. This sort of space weather, and this sort of solar structure, solar wind structure, is one of the most stable on the sun. This is the 7th time that we have seen this co-rotating interaction region. And because of that, they continuously load the Earth. If they last for multiple rotations, every 28 days, you're getting that hit over and over and over. And so it's just constantly energy loading the Earth. And then you can get that to really start to build up. And that's more specifically for earthquakes. You see after multiple rotations of really big coronal holes, you see an increase occurrence of earthquakes, more specifically giant earthquakes. At least there is a connection between the two in the research. And if you read up on just the science of it, then I think it's causal, but at a minimum, there's a correlation between the two. But one other thing I'll say is it's hard to get a more causal agent than the sun. So you have correlation where there's things moving together, but they're not necessarily connected. Sometimes you just have random correlations, and the two things aren't necessarily correlated. Like the price of a Wendy's burger is going up at the same rate as people getting the flu or something like that. It's just a completely meaningless correlation. But then you get correlations between things that do make sense. Like you have changes on the sun, and then you have changes here on Earth, and the sun is our main energy source by far. You turn that off again, and Earth is done for in terms of being a nice place to live. So then you have to think, okay, what's the causal agent? If there is a correlation, what's the causal agent? What's the thing that's linking them both? And it's kind of hard to get a more causal agent than the sun, right? Because it's 99.86% of the mass of the solar system. It's literally the thing that rules everything in our near local kind of reality to some degree. So you can't really get more causal than the sun. Now, the causal agent is just the fact that the solar wind influences the magnetosphere, the plasmasphere, then also the atmosphere. And another reason why the Earth is already kind of experiencing some of this weather volatility has been now for a while is because of the radiation belts. We've been having these geomagnetic storms since early March. And as a result, our radiation belts have just been dumping all their ions into Earth over and over and over again. They get replenished after a geomagnetic storm. In fact, they get enhanced after a geomagnetic storm. But the actual impact of one will cause them to precipitate down. Here we're looking at our flux. This is higher flux. This is lower flux. And so we see this big push right there. That's the 22nd of March. That's when we had our last significant geomagnetic impact. Then they recovered a bit, right? And now they're getting pushed down on again because of this G2 geomagnetic storm. So that's what's occurring right now. We have a whole bunch of factors that are converging at this moment in time. And one other one to be aware of is that in 3 days, we have a partial solar eclipse. And these are more charged energy moments of time. It's at minimum a new moon because the moon's in front of the Earth, in between the sun and the Earth. But because it's an eclipse, it's exactly along that ecliptic plane. And so it'll actually block the sun. Now this one will only partially block the sun, like we see with this imagery here. This is from a different partial solar eclipse. This is the date, though, that our next one will occur. Here's the shadow path for this eclipse. We see it there cutting through the Atlantic and then going up through Newfoundland, Canada, and even into bits of Siberia. And here we see the ability to see that stretching down into Europe and Northwest Africa. But the people along this blue line will see this eclipse the absolute best. If they have eclipse glasses, that's recommended. You can also take like 3 layers of polarized glasses and kind of just look at it that way. But eclipse glasses are best. So this is the eclipse path. We have this coming up on the 9th. In general, we see there be more energetic kind of world events and things happen around eclipses. We don't exactly know why, but if you study into, for example, mundane astrology, you'll see that there's a connection between eclipses, both solar and lunar, and world events. So yeah, it's a little wild. Now, let us see if there's any other data I want to present to you before we do a question and answer. Let's just see if there's anything else. Well, let's just go back here. So yeah, that's what's occurring right now. We have this the significant, geomagnetic storm, a G2 geomagnetic storm. It's only likely to strengthen if that solar wind gets stronger, and I don't think that's likely. So I think we're at a G2, and I think we'll stay at a G2. But the possibility is there. At some point, it'll subside, it'll weaken. But the effects that we see from geomagnetic storms are typically delayed into the weather system by 1 to 3 days. So there is sometimes a little bit of a pretty quick effect, but in general, you see that energy work its way down over 24 to 72 hours. This has not hit Washington yet. This is going to come in tonight according to all the different weather agencies and just the different people that I've been tracking. So it is lining up pretty closely in time with when those enhanced energetic effects from the geomagnetic storm are likely to begin altering the troposphere. And just to really back up, just because there is a geomagnetic storm happening right now does not mean it's going to change this weather system significantly. Everything's always, of course, everything has its own individual unique characteristics, and nothing is 100% playbook. It works this way every single time. But we do see these changes in the tropospheric weather system, like wind changes, temperature changes, pressure changes, things of this nature from space weather impacts. And so there's a heightened probability of there being some sort of intensification of this than there would have been if there wasn't a G2 geomagnetic storm at this moment in time. So that's why I present this, because it unfortunately doesn't seem anyone else is really talking about this to a really significant degree in a way that's reaching a widespread audience. So if I can do that, that is great. So there are 3,000 people now in the live stream. That's awesome. Thank you. Welcome. My name is Stefan Burns, geophysicist, space weatherman. Thank you for the super thanks, one of a mine. What about in Europe? Well, Europe doesn't have really any significant systems at play right now. We can go back to Null Earth and check that out. And yeah, if you have a question, type at Stefan Burns. Let me put that one up actually on, well, what about Europe? Yeah, here we go. And so here's Null Earth. And if we go over to Europe, we see a lot of stuff in the North Sea. And Iceland looks like it's having some fun right now. But in general, nothing really in mainland Europe. This is looking at the wind. There's other things that you can look at, but for right now, it looks like Europe is fine. Another question here is this why I feel my vertigo extremely bad? And that is an interesting question because, yeah, there is some connection between like headaches, for example, and geomagnetic storms, and head pressure can build up. That's some of the negative things. And yeah, vertigo is connected to inner ear balance, and there's connections with the magnetic field in the brain, and so I wouldn't discount it. I don't really have vertigo, so I can't really speak from personal experience, and typically I like to speak from personal experience. But yeah, there's so many people that report on the channel when there's a geomagnetic storm coming in that they feel dizzy, vertigo, things of that nature. So that is definitely possible. It's worth considering if you are feeling that, to be aware of space weather. That's why I release these videos and do live streams as it's happening. So if you like to stay appraised, then please subscribe to the channel, because I will keep you up to date. That is like one of my core mission objectives, you could say. And whoa, there's some interesting things happening in the chat right now. And we have a question about the Schumann resonances. So actually, let us go there. Now, I won't be able to answer your question as to the Schumann resonance in the Puget Sound. because I don't know of a Schumann resonance station there. But we can check out our Schumann resonances out of Tomsk, Russia, and they just had their atmospheric activity kind of slow down. So it's actually a good place to check the Schumann resonances at this moment in time, because when you get atmospheric activity, you get things like this to show up. Now, what are we looking at here? We are looking at the vertical electric field. There's another super thanks that came in from Francis. Thank you so much, Francis. And so we see, we're looking at our vertical electric field. This is measured, basically the electric gradient going from the ground surface up to the ionosphere, 50, 100 kilometers up where there's more charge. 250 volts. That can go to like 300 or 400,000 volts during a geomagnetic storm, especially in the high latitude regions near the poles, okay? So you have this electric field gradient and you have these oscillations that sit upon that, different frequencies, little vibrations. We're measuring those vibrations going from 0 to 40 hertz. This is the part that overlaps with our heart rhythms and also our brain waves and a lot of different body resonances. We see here, for example, local weather can cause an increase in these lower frequencies that bleeds down. So this is going from 0 to about the first mode, even beyond that, 10 hertz. And then we get this increased intensity at these frequencies going down. See, this is higher intensity, this is lower intensity. And so that's like what a weather system can do. And in general, we are connected to that background electric field. We are part of it. We are one with it. And so when you have changes like this because a thunderstorm is rolling overhead or electrified rain cloud or God forbid like a cyclone, then you're getting also a big pulse of electric energy as a result of that. Now what happens is that you can create a lot of lightning as a result of a storm, right? There's about 50 lightning strikes occurring across the planet at any given moment in time. And so every lightning strike creates these electromagnetic waves. Thank you, Frank, for the super thanks. Thank you so much. It's incredible. Thank you so much. And so these electromagnetic waves, they propagate out. The low frequency ones are the ones that will then coat the entire Earth globally. And I should pull up the video for this specifically because it will help you understand what I'm talking about if you see these Schumann resonances. This is the animation by NASA. And in fact, this animation is almost always at the most popular chart for their animation studio because people are so fascinated by Schumann resonances. But see these lightning strikes, they create these extremely low frequency waves going from about 0 to 50 hertz, and those then propagate out globally, okay? They overlap with our brain waves exactly in frequency and in intensity. They interact with our heart rhythms. They change during geomagnetic storms, things of this nature. And so if we go back to our display capture, we see here no weather that's active out of Tomsk, Russia. So we are looking at the Schumann resonances without any of this local noise generation, you could say. Here's the first mode at 8 hertz or so, 14 hertz, 20, 26, 33, and then 39, 45, and then it starts to really fade off after that. What is interesting about this is that because this is out of Russia, but if you had a monitoring station in the United States, which is a plan of mine to do, is eventually have an entire United States with multiple monitoring stations observing this plus other geophysical and weather, just to collect data on all those things. This would be just totally lit up right now for the United States because of that cyclone off of Washington. And as that comes in, it's going to push all that energy throughout the United States, and then you have Texas down below also feeding energy up throughout the United States. So the United States right now is receiving a big pulse of Schumann resonance energy, and just in general across the entire lower frequency part of the light spectrum, in addition to this geomagnetic storm. So we have the geomagnetic storm already causing this enhancement of volatility throughout the body, increased metabolism, energy just kind of swings, things of this nature, more electrical activity just in general in the brain, in the heart, in the nervous system, right? Really gets the nervous system going. And then you also have this coming in, electrical activity being generated in the lower part of the Earth directly near us, also then sweeping over and causing this increase in electrical activity across the United States at this moment in time. So it's like really a 1-2 punch for America right now. And just being mindful of your mind space and your emotions. You know, it may be easy to get triggered at this moment in time. Though it's individual. Some people may report feelings of more calm and bliss and things of this nature. If they're really working with these energies nicely, then you can also have that experience. So just extend some grace out to others if they're getting snappy at you or anything like this, because there's a lot of energy coming in right now. I wish I had a real-time station for America, but I don't at this moment in time. I'm planning on building that myself, but I just need to buy some land and build it all. And you know, it takes money and capital to do that. And so if you'd like to mutually support my efforts, you know, if you would like to mutually support each other to make that all happen, you know, I have my website, wildfreeorganic.com. I sell things like earthing boots and shoes. Barefoot is best for earthing and grounding, super valuable, important to do right now during this increased energetic volatility. But if you want to have some while you're on, if you want to be earthing and grounding while you're on a hike or out and about on the town, these are the women's shoes right here. These are excellent. They're completely conductive because it's all leather. This is water buffalo on the bottom, thick. It's super durable, just as durable as rubber. You also have a copper plug at the K1. Oh, those are tied together. At the K1 Meridian, it's treaded for increased grip and traction, including the shoes. This is just an older model. Here are the men's shoes right here. These also, they have hemp lacing and they're totally treaded on the bottom, zero toe drop, wide toe box, natural foot splay. Those are the best for grounding more often. You just wear them as you're out and about and you'll be grounded if you're outside. Or if you're worried about stepping on a bee and anaphylactic shock or something like that, you can wear the shoes and still be grounded because it has completely conductive design. And then I have like the T-blends, which I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream. This is excellent for enhancing your parasympathetic activity, kind of reducing sympathetic activity, helping you to rest, relax, to sleep better. You know, this can also affect your sleep. These sort of things, a geomagnetic storm or increased electrical activity due to like a thunderstorm. This is purple lotus flower, mugwort, chamomile, passion flower. All four of them work together beautifully, synergistically to enhance these things. And then if you're working with this stuff in a more spiritual way, if you're in a pretty good spot and you're working with these energies spiritually, then the spirituality kind of opens up your connection to these energies and allows you to have an increase in dreams and frequency, how vivid they are, perhaps lucid dreams, even precognition dreams. When I was developing this tea blend in 2022 for myself, I was making a tea blend to enhance my own dreams. I had a lot of precognition dreams that summer when I was traveling throughout Europe. So that's something you can do, you know, dreams that tell you the future. That's a precognition dream. They're a real thing, folks. It's not common, but it's kind of wild. So these are the sort of energies that you open yourself up to when you drink spirituality in a good way. And then if you want to add a little bit of flavor to it, it's already really tasty, but if you want to add some flavor, get fruit tea. It's also good for your immunity and also has lemon balm. So it works really synergistically with spirituality. I would definitely recommend you get both. That's all on the website, wildfreeorganic.com/store. Again, wildfreeorganic.com/store. Use the code March Madness for 5% off till the end of the month. That's a way for us to mutually support each other because basically the proceeds, like the profits that I get from that, you know, I need to have some stability in my life. I sell it at a fair cost. I already sell it at a super fair cost. These are all organic and everything, but I'm saving up the money from that to eventually build these monitoring stations across the United States. I'm going to start with one and then hopefully get a snowball going and get a whole network of monitoring stations across the US so we can track Schumann resonances, geophysical parameters, and also weather across the entire globe and stitch that data together using some sort of AI algorithm or something like that. It's going to be an exciting journey. I hope you join me for that as we proceed with that through 2025, 2026. So please subscribe. And yeah, that's what's happening right now with the globe geophysically and also energetically. Just big weather system about to hit. We had the G2 geomagnetic storm at this moment in time. Also, there was a super thanks that came in. So thank you so much for that, Mueller. I really appreciate that. And Haji is saying, can you put a GoFundMe or some way for people to start donating for the monitoring stations? Yeah, I'm going to do that very, very soon. It's just I need to basically, I want to have some things set and ready first before I start the GoFundMe, so it doesn't look like I'm just taking people's money. Like, I would like to have the land ready, so I have the spot, the location, and then, and I already know which equipment to get. I've already been talking to manufacturers, and then I'm going to turn that GoFundMe on. So yeah, that is something that we will do, because as much as I want to be able to fund it myself, I think other people, there's a lot of other people that also want to contribute to this project. And there needs to be a website. I'm creating a new website right now, a whole platform for this. So it takes time. I'm a one-man band right now. So yeah, thanks to all of you. This is all possible. Giving you these live updates is really important for me. I know it's really important for you. So thank you all so much for joining today and for just in general supporting the channel. I will keep researching into these things, putting these connections together. I'm not afraid. You know, the nice thing about I contemplate on this every now and then. The nice thing about my position is that I have no allegiance to anyone. I went to school and I got a Bachelor of Science in Geology from UC Davis, which is a great school. It's not one of these Ivy Leagues or something where there's great inflation and they'll give you an A no matter what. Like, you have to work hard at a school like UC Davis to get that grade. I coasted through high school, no problem. Never had to like really like do homework or anything to get like, you know, A's on my test or my class or for like the SATs. Like, you know, everything's always been easy for me because I absorb information really easily. I actually had to study at UC Davis to make sure I got good grades. So it's you know, that was an important school. But now there's like, to some degree, I think a big degree personally, there's a level of indoctrination that occurs, especially as you go further into the scholastic system, like master's or PhD. Now, there's a lot of amazing people that do a lot of amazing research. I wouldn't know a tenth the stuff that I do now if it wasn't for them. But there does seem to be some aspect that funnels people away from having a more open, multidisciplinary perspective. It seems to put blinders on people. And really at that point, I could just be quoting a whole bunch of, you know, individuals and, you know, scientists around the world, because there's a lot of people in agreement with this. This is what they're observing. So I like my position because I have no allegiance to anyone. I just done all this research myself basically since I quit my normal job. I just really dove into all of this. I've read hundreds and hundreds of research papers now at this point, covering all these different domains from geophysics to space weather to what's happening like even beyond in the cosmos and the galaxy, and bioelectricity and genetics and DNA and viruses and all this stuff, weather. So that has been successful for me. I'm going to keep doing that, and I think that provides me kind of an independent platform. I'm not at risk of being defunded by the government or something like that, right? I'm completely independent, and I don't have to bow to anybody. So I'm just really, my goal is just to present the truth that I'm finding as accurately as possible. I have an intention of just educating others because I think these connections are fascinating. I really just find this stuff so fascinating. So just a passion of mine to understand the Earth, and to better understand the Earth, I'm going to build these monitoring stations across the United States. Eventually, that's a goal for the next year into 2026, at least one of them to start. So I think there's some benefit to that, right? I don't have a boss. All this stuff is just really, yeah. I'm just completely a free man, you could say. I think it's great. So yeah, thanks to all of you. That's why I mentioned that. So thanks to all of you. God bless you all. I will keep you up to date. Please subscribe to the channel to stay informed. Both on the videos and also on the live streams. There's those two tabs on the YouTube channel. Make sure you click both because I release live streams like this. I also release regular videos. And then, yeah, smash that like button to get this out there. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers, almost at 200K, which is insane to me. Absolutely bonkers. Because back in 2023, January 2023, I was at 4,000. So I love it. And yeah. We'll see you all around. Thank you all so much, and chat soon.